keep you healthy and in your home. Call 206-320-5325 or visit providence.org Elder Place. Providence.org Elder Place.
Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
On your community Rainier Avenue Radio World, we are doing anything kind of size stuff as we go along. Hello, yes, ladies and gentlemen, and this is by no stretch of the imagination. This is not Mick Hoffman sitting next to me. This is Andy Barnes, who has been with us before, and the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, Mick Hoffman, who's usually with us, talks about his unbelievably talented staff that he has working with him down in Renton, Washington. And this gentleman here, and obviously we go back a little ways, when I was the head football coach at Highline High School and also at Franklin High School. And I know that he has dedicated his life to working in high school athletics, and as someone who is so knowledgeable and someone who is just a perfect person to have stand in for our esteemed executive director. This is Andy Barnes. Andy, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's always great to see you and great to be here on the show.
Thank you so much. You just got done with a very, very busy tournament season for basketball and other sports. Tell us about the basketball tournaments, the one down in Tacoma and obviously the one over on the east side of the state.
Yeah, we did. Just finished up a couple weeks ago with our state basketball championships. We still have dance and drill in the winter, but that kind of culminates a big run. We had a great tournament down in Tacoma, the 3A, 4A championships. Saw some exciting games, some teams that have perennially been in the championships. We saw Eastside Catholic win their first state championships on the boys' side, and Garfield girls 4 in a row. How about that? Megan Fiso, who's played a leading role on many a Rainier Avenue radio broadcast. I think she's been playing for at least now 10 years. She's an unbelievable player, and congratulations to the Garfield Bulldogs, obviously. And obviously Eastside Catholic as well, obviously as an O'Day grad and now an O'Day parent. There's quite a rivalry that has been established between those schools, but Eastside Catholic gets their big first state championship, and so many great players they've had over the years.
And congratulations to that program. Tell us, it's so interesting. Andy, someone put up a question on our little O'Day webpage on Facebook. What was the game that you remember the most at O'Day? And I put down the 1981 state semifinal with the Timberline Blazers, which was a hotly contested battle. They had a guy by the name of Ron Holmes, who played nose tackle of all positions at the University of Washington, went on and played in the NFL for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and some other teams, and was a tremendous athlete. That was a tremendous basketball game. But it's amazing how 40 years later you can remember those games, and 13 people commented on that particular post. And these are memories that last forever.
They absolutely are. And I can think back to when I was playing high school and going to games when I was in elementary and middle school and thinking about it. And it's so vivid of, remembering plays and how they turned out. And so it's great to watch the kids participate at these tournaments. I love going out and seeing all the tournaments we do. Basketball is great. We see so many different things, game-changing moments, game-changing, life-changing moments for them too. So it's really great that we can provide those opportunities, and I hope they all had a great time down there at the Tacoma Dome.
Our esteemed producer Daniel Bellis has brought us up closer, and I know that my hair looks even better when you're up close. And then let it go out a little bit as the cool almost spring is over. We were talking about before we came into the studio. We didn't have the marquee player this year, but boy, the state of Washington has been so fortunate over the years to have Tari Eason, to have baby boy DeJounte Murray, to have even Cooper Kupp played in this tournament about a little bit more than a decade ago, playing over there for his team over there in Eastern Washington, and then let alone obviously the number one pick in the draft. And I got to see him last Wednesday night when I was in Washington, D.C., and I'm texting Mario Banchero, and Paulo's putting up 22 points, 12 assists, and 6 rebounds as they defeated the Orlando Magic. He and these two Wagner brothers from Germany. Too many Wagners and too much Paulo Banchero for the Washington Bullets, but it seems like we have seen professionals every single tournament, every time this thing comes to Tacoma.
I think we have. Seattle's always been known for having great high school sports and producing those, college and professional athletes. We've seen it on the girls' side too. So
absolutely.
As you mentioned Megan going to the University of Oregon, and I'm sure she's probably going to do much more beyond that too. But we've seen a ton of great athletes at those tournaments, even at their 1A and 2A tournaments. Joe Harris played for Chelan.
That's right.
And a great NBA player.
Joey Buckets.
There you go. Yeah. So we've had players at all three of our tournaments that have had great careers, and each one is a little bit unique. Obviously, the 3A4 tournament I'm most familiar with being there down the last few years. But it's great to see those individual athletes being a part of really great teams, but seeing what they can do athletically, it's pretty impressive.
What does the tournament do for the cities that host it? Obviously Tacoma, and I'm sorry, the city in Eastern Washington.
We have one tournament in Yakima and one tournament in Spokane.
And everybody's familiar with the Sun Dome, obviously, and obviously Spokane, is the 2 or 3 largest city in the state, depending upon the way the wind's blowing sometimes. But what does it do for those communities when they actually get a chance to host the state tournaments?
I think the impact that our events, and it's not just basketball, we have events in Yakima, each one of the 3 sports seasons. The people that go there, what they give in return to our member schools is just tremendous. I always talk about how once you go to a tournament for the first time in a certain area, what they do, specifically Yakima, they do a tremendous job for us. But each one of the communities steps up. We have team hosts that host our teams. They take them out to lunch. They take them out to dinners, get them involved in the communities. They take them out to elementary schools and get them involved. And I think that's what helps our tournaments. It helps them create that bond with those kids. Like I said, when I was in those younger grades and seeing them and getting to know them and outside of the court and seeing what that does. So I think that overall, it's a huge impact that we have in our communities, and we really appreciate being able to go back and also take our events to new facilities around the state too.
Eddie, putting a tournament on is not an easy endeavor, and I haven't been to one in a couple of years. But I do know this: when you go to a tournament, there is so much more going on than what I believe that we think we see. We see the players on the court, we see the officials, and we see a couple of people sitting there basically representing different elements of the media, and they're sitting at the media tables. But tell us how much goes into putting on a tournament.
It's a really big tournament to put, no matter what you're doing, but specifically with our basketball tournaments, we have anywhere of 50 to 75 people that are on the tournament staff. We can't do it alone here at the WIAA office, and so we hire tournament managers that bring in really great people that are in the community, that have been involved in high school sports, some that haven't and just want to be a part and helping out wherever they can. So we have really great teams. We all really well work together, between the officials and the people running our locker rooms and the pass gate people. They put in a tremendous amount of time for just a little compensation that we're able to give them, and whether it's a hat or a T-shirt or just a concession stands. But we can't do what we do without the people that help volunteer at our events. So we truly appreciate what they do for us.
You are with Juan, Cotto, ladies and gentlemen. Rainier Avenue Radio. I guess they call me a personality and the voice of Metro League Baseball. And boy, we're getting a little sun through the windows here. We're getting a little cracks. I have to squint my eyes. I remember Daniel Bellis and I, we were out at a game and that's the beautiful thing about baseball in our community. And this in the Pacific Northwest is that Daniel Bellis and I were at a game, Andy, last winter. It was Ballard was taking on Rainier Beach right out of Rainier Playfield. And it felt like we were on the planet Hoth for you Star Wars fans. It was cold, it was dank, it was dark. And when it got over, we put the equipment away and just got warmed back up. I had to build a fire when I got home. It was so chilly, but that's the beautiful thing. It's nice to have a beautiful sunny day today, but it is baseball season in our community, and we will be out calling baseball games and telling the stories of our kids in the community. And what we do here every Tuesday is we meet with the executive director of the Washington State head of athletics, the Washington State Interscholastic Activities Association, Mick Hoffman, and today Andy Barnes is sitting in for him. But we talk about the issues that we are dealing with in our community in regards to high school athletics. And why is it important? Because this is an opportunity for our kids to learn. It's an opportunity for our communities to come together, celebrate the accomplishments of our kids, and also bring people together to watch. And that's what these tournaments are about. That's what these games are about. That's what our broadcasts are about on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Andy, you haven't been here in a little bit. You haven't been here in a minute, as we say in urban language. Tell us a little about you. What got you into sports?
I think my dad was a coach at a junior high, and he coached all sorts of sports. And so I was always in the gym. I was always following him around when going to his practices. I was always in the backyard playing with my friends and just trying everything that we could to get out and play, whether it was playing basketball or baseball or golf or whatever it was. We were never really focused on anything, but we just tried to play as many sports as we could. But growing up, always being in the gym, watching my dad coach, just being a part of the school system. That's really how I got involved. And him being a teacher, I thought about going into that field, and it didn't really work out. But I ended up getting WSU was a calling, and I did a sport management program over there, and that really kind of kick-started my career at the WIAA. I've been there ever since college. So, tell
us about what you do now. Give us your title,
yes,
and tell us about what your title involves.
Yeah, so I'm one of the 4 WIAA Assistant Executive Directors. I oversee the sports of swimming and diving, golf, tennis, basketball, and football. I've been there since 2005. I originally started as the production coordinator. So really my whole working career has been at WIAA. So it's been a tremendous opportunity, and appreciate Mike Colbrace, who was the former executive director, giving me the opportunity.
Our man, Mike. I hope you're watching today, Mike. Always a pleasure to hear your name mentioned.
So, as I mentioned, I oversee those sports. I work directly with the member schools. I work with my coworkers on interpreting the rules for each one of those sports, and then any handbook rules, and just being a service to the membership.
Tell us a little bit about the WIAA, and in particular in the state of Washington, like across our country. There are 2 sports that are very, very popular, and you mentioned, and I'm glad you put those 2 last. You mentioned the other sports that you oversee. However, let's take those last 2 sports, because Washington has a history of being a football state. I don't think there's any doubt about it. Obviously, with our 3 programs here, we have obviously the Huskies, the Cougars, the Eastern Washington Eagles. We have our small college programs down in Tacoma. And this is a state that is known for the game of football, and you obviously come up against the exhilaration of the state championship games, and they were played in Husky Stadium this year.
Yep.
You also deal with all the challenges that come as the quote unquote, I call you the overseer of football at the WIAA. Tell us about football in the state of Washington, the challenges and triumphs of working in that sport, and the things that you have to deal with in regards to making sure that this legacy program, this legacy sport in our state is continued to shine at the highest level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our football programs, as you mentioned, are tremendous, no matter what level it is. We've seen Super Bowls, we've seen national championships. Our high school football programs have produced a number of kids that have gone on and been successful in the workforce, and have proceeded on to college and professional sports that way. But football is great. We have some really great teams. It's played across the entire state. I think it's really competitive at every one of the levels. I think that we've seen programs that have had success. We've seen some that have kind of taken some downturns, but now they're on the way back up, and so that's really exciting to see. Going through the pandemic and the focus on concussions, I think that people really feel good about where football is at right now. It's challenging because it's an expensive sport. There's a lot that goes into it. And from the state level, we're obviously trying to provide the best opportunities that we can. And as you mentioned, we were able to get to the University of Washington this year for our state championship. So that was a tremendous success. And we can't thank the UW enough for getting us in there and opening up the doors. And we look forward to working them in the future. But, we've moved away from the Tacoma Dome. We've gone to our high school sites, and now we're at the one of the premier stadiums in the country, no matter what level it is, to play our state championships. So we're super fortunate to do that. And we look forward to working with them in the future and everything that comes along. I just met with the football coaches this past weekend, talked about some issues that they want to bring to the state level. So I think that being able to communicate with them and talk with coaches from around the state, I think that's key. Being able to listen to what they want and to see how we can make that work across the state.
10 years ago, and of course, obviously, you're talking to a former football coach, so you'll get a couple of football questions tossed in. Yep. But 10 years ago, there was a necessary conversation about the health and safety of the rules in regards to concussions, and not only at the NFL level where there were lawsuits and different things that we saw very, very public in the media. We also saw a movie that really showed the impact. In the entendre of the word impact, but in regards to the violent collisions in the sport and the impact that was having with brain and trauma to the cervical area. And we looked at helmets, and we looked at mouthpieces, and we looked at rules. Where are we in that conversation right now? Because I'm sure in terms of talking to the coaches, it's always in a all-out mode to preserve the game. And obviously that was a major issue. And where are we now with the concussions issue?
I think we're in a pretty good spot with where we've come for the concerns, where we've talked about the education piece. Football is a violent sport. There's contact. There's players are bigger, faster, stronger than they ever have been. But I think what we're trying to do is teach the right way to make tackles, the right way to play the game. And we've implemented, training for our coaches. We've standardized that process, and we've developed a program at the state level with clinicians from around the state that can teach a consistent program, much like what the Seahawks started with their safer tackling programs. And so I think that's tremendously important. Making sure our schools understand the equipment, making sure it's being reconditioned, on a every other year basis, if not every year, to make sure that the equipment that kids are putting out there is safe. But most importantly is the education piece around how to play the sport, how to play it well, and taking the head out of the game and not using that as the main tackling piece that we've seen over so many years.
The other sport that we talk about here in the state of Washington, obviously, you just got done with it, basketball. And it is such a popular sport here. Obviously, we have a legacy of having so many different coaches and so many different people who are involved in that sport within communities throughout the state of Washington. Tell us about right now the state of basketball. Now that the tournament is over, we've seen it. Obviously, there are at times, conflicts in regards to playing time, and obviously in our buildings here in the state of Washington, throughout the state, you got on a Friday night, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, Tuesday night. There are buildings that are packed for this sport, and once again, it's a legacy sport. We've had professionals and college players on both the boys and girls sides at every level. Tell us about the state of basketball in Washington State right now, and how do you feel after the tournament is all said and done?
Yeah, I think it's in a good spot, much like any sport that we see at the high school level. Obviously, there's a lot of focus on it. It's a sport that begins in November for the high schools, and lasts almost 3 to 4 months. And so I think there's a lot of coverage of it throughout the state. There's a lot of great programs. There's teams from our state that get to travel out and experience what that's like in other states. And I think what we're doing in Washington, I think what, the coaches that we have and the followings that we have is right up there with any of the states. So I think it's in a good positive spot. We're always listening to coaches. We send out surveys to our coaches from our state tournaments after that to gather, to see what the experience was like for them, see how we can improve our events. We're kind of disconnected a bit from the regular season where those are managed locally, but we try to get it out and see how things are going. I know I went to a few events this year and I thought they were ran really well, and it was exciting to see some games.
It's still amazing, ladies and gentlemen, and keep this in mind for next year. And actually just keep this in mind tonight when you're watching television. There is a large probability if you turn on a basketball game tonight, and there's a large probability if you turn on a college game this weekend, male or female, that there's a large probability if you watch a WNBA game, you're going to see an athlete in one of those two teams that are on the floor that played WIAA basketball at a high school in Washington State. It's just unbelievable how far basketball has taken off. And also you may see an athlete that we have broadcasted right here on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio World. This is Andy Barnes. He is Associate Athletic Director for the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. I am Juan Cotto, and right now I have a stream of light that is called the sun. A sun ray is coming through the window, and it is on my head. I guess it makes it look a little bit like Maury Wills back in the day, having that streak on my hair. Not that I don't have enough gray hair coming in already. The topic that we are going to have today, Andy, is conflict handling and dispute resolution in high school athletics. And I am just, ladies and gentlemen, two things happened to me this past week. I have a new car and I have a new telephone. And my 16-year-old son is the only one that was savvy enough to program all this stuff for me. And I thought I had Do Not Disturb on, but maybe I took it off, and it's getting a lot of phone calls. So please bear with me as I'm dealing with the challenges of getting my phone and everything hooked up to the car. It's so cool now having a new car, first one in quite a while, but now I can talk with my hands free, and I no longer have to, and you guys all know the scenario where you're driving and keeping the thing up by your face. And having to drop it down when the police car goes by. No more of that. I'm hands-free and the roads are safe, although my 16-year-old is now driving, so the roads are safe, but please keep your head up while you are driving. Conflict is available, or a conflict is inevitable in any organization, including high school athletics. As a former high school football coach, I do know a little about a conflict. How do administrators and coaches proactively address and manage conflicts within their sports programs in the state of Washington?
I think it's a really good question. I think that it probably varies from program to program and from school to school, depending on what the expectations are. But I think that, from the athletic director perspective, when they're bringing in those coaches, they're talking about, what they expect to see out of their programs. And then coaches doing that with their, kids in the programs and their parents in the programs, of setting goals, setting expectations. And when we do have issues, let's talk about them. Let's communicate, because I think that no doubt it's going to happen at some level. It's sports. There's going to be an argument. There's going to be a disagreement. There's there's going to be something that comes up that's, not everybody sees the eye to eye on it, and you need to figure out how to work through that. And I think the successful programs, whether it's on the court or just dealing with it in the schools, I think the ones that talk about it and set a plan on how they're going to deal with it are the ones that are able to get through those conflicts. And it seems like a little bit easier than others that maybe don't have a plan.
When you said your father was a coach,
Mm-hmm.
He coached basketball.
He coached basketball, golf, track and field, baseball, pretty much anything that they had a coach for.
And just from the experience, what makes sports so emotional, obviously, is that it's a competitive environment, right? It's a competitive environment at the very beginning because you want to put your best team in the field, and if you have a number of players out there competing for positions, coach has to make that decision. Then you go ahead and you play the games, and then there's a competitive environment on the field. How just growing up and watching your father coach, how did he handle with the stressors and the byproducts of that competitive environment?
I think fortunately for him, he coached some really good teams, so maybe there was a little less conflict than what you would see, or teams that maybe struggle. But I think he always kind of set a goal with his team. He talked about what do we expect to get out of this season, whether it's competitively or just working together as a team. How are we going to grow? And I think that's one way to kind of set the stage for what the expectations are going to be. You're going to, showing up on time to practice, or competing hard every day, giving your effort, and being there for your teammates. I think that those every coach is going to have a different philosophy and how they set things up. But I think that going into a program with a plan, I think that from an athlete's perspective, you want to see that out of a coach. You want to make sure that they're prepared going into a season, and they, where you stand, where the line is going to be, what the expectations of the teams and what the individuals is going to be, so that you can just focus on playing, so to speak.
As many of these stories are on Rainier Avenue Radio, and certainly within high school athletics, it's a family show. And a number of times you get an instance where we have a young man like Andy Barnes who saw his father doing this, and he's been able to transition that passion into a career in sports here in the state of Washington. We're going to come back and we're going to continue this conversation after a brief break. And this is WIAA Primetime on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio .world.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio .world. Don't forget to log on www.rainieravenue.world.
Support for Rainier Avenue Radio comes from Cascade PBS, presenting season 2 of Out and Back with Allison Mariella Desir. Join Allison as she explores the Pacific Northwest with changemakers who are reclaiming space in the outdoors and creating opportunities for local BIPOC communities to engage with nature and find joy and healing. It's available now on Cascade PBS app and airing on KCTS 9 Thursdays at 8:50 p.m.
Hey, this is Paul Pearson. I've hosted the R&B show Star Time since the very beginning of Rainier Avenue Radio, and after years of featuring tracks from the 50s through the 80s, Star Time now plays R&B and hip-hop from the 1990s as well. A whole half-century of soul, funk, hip-hop, and more on Star Time, Wednesdays at 2 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Hello, listener. What's important to you about what's going on in your community? Are you interested? Are you concerned? In any case, I invite you to tune into my show, Seattle Here and Now, on Rainier Avenue Radio .world. Why? I will be covering a wide range of topics important to you and impacting the community. Each show will have a special guest or guests to share with you information on a variety of subjects that are happening here and now in Seattle. I promise I will work hard to make my show informative, interesting, and entertaining. Be sure to listen to Seattle Here and Now on Rainier Avenue Radio .world.
Generational wealth. Generational wealth. Generational wealth. What is generational wealth? We asked our communities, and this is what they had to say.
Generational wealth is having financial security and not having to worry about it for yourself, your immediate family, and future generations.
It's a very elusive idea to me personally, because
it's not something in my immediate experience, and it's only something that I'm learning about a little bit more in theory and knowing or trying to know if that's like a real possibility for someone like me.
This campaign to create awareness to generational wealth is brought to you by the Department of Neighborhood's Generational Wealth Initiative, the Washington Housing Finance Commission, and Rainier Avenue Radio World. Create your generational wealth for you and the future of your families.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not explaining to my intern exactly what R&B is, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio World.
Here we go. Welcome back to your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio World. Don't mind me, just a little bit of housekeeping going on over here. Oh, the fun of community public radio. We have you've seen it all. You have seen it all on your community radio station with Juan, Cotto, Tony Benton, Jim Street, and of course Fresh Juice, my man Fresh Juice, Daniel Bellis. Daniel, go ahead and promote Fresh Juice for us. Go ahead and do that. Throw that up there. And if you want to hear some music, and if you want to hear some good conversation, you want to hear Daniel B, man, that is a fun program to listen to. I think I was goofing around with the new phone when I was in Washington, D.C., Daniel. I think I stumbled across Fresh Juice, and it sounded really good on the new speaker. Obviously, it's such a fun program. And Daniel Bellis, man, I want to give him a shout out for all he does for Rainier Avenue Radio and helping us tell these stories out in the community. We have Andy Barnes here with us today. He is an assistant athletic director down at the WIAA, Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. And we got a question about the one-time transfer rule. And I can barely see that from here. And we are going to talk about the one-time transfer rule. And that's something that Andy can go ahead and kind of share with us and tell us what went into the one-time transfer rule.
Yeah, so it's part of the amendments that are up for proposal this spring. And amendments are the proposed rule changes that our rep assembly votes on. They had their winter coalition meeting in January to finalize those. So one representative from each one of the leagues around the state, our executive board, our district directors are there to talk about the proposed amendments to make any potential changes to them. Those are sent to our rep assembly voters. There's 53 voters across the state, 35 at the high school level and 18 at the middle level. So depending on what the proposed amendment is, if it's for something that will impact both the high school and the middle schools, all 53 will vote on it. If it's just a high school amendment, the high school voters will vote on that. Mm-hmm. So one of the amendments that's proposed is similar to what we're seeing in college with transfers all over the place, but some states have tried to modernize their transfer rule. And so we've taken a proposal to the membership to see if there's interest in modernizing our rule, making it maybe less restrictive in many ways. There's lots of kids that transfer for a number of different reasons. And obviously the goal with eligibility is to find a way to get kids eligible. We're not trying to prevent them from participating, but we do have to have some standards within the eligibility process.
Refresh us, what is the current rule?
So obviously, in order to participate at a school, you have to be a member of that school and you have to live within the boundaries of that school. And your full family unit has to be a part of that. And there's lots of other aspects that go into it, but that's kind of the general rule. And by no means do I know everything. Justin and Janae in our office, they handle eligibility, but I'm sure Mick has talked about some of the eligibility rules here on the show. So we're looking at ways to open those opportunities for kids to participate. We know that sometimes they have to move for whether it's their family because of work or for taking care of relatives, things like that. But maybe providing an opportunity for them to have a one-time transfer where at certain levels within the system, they get to do that and they're immediately eligible with going through that process. So.
Interestingly enough, and let me ask you this question, and let's have a hypothetical situation because I think it's interesting, and obviously the benefits of high school athletics. Obviously, if you are a decent player, and we've seen a few decent players, but if you're a decent player, worthy of a potential Division I offer, or a big time Division II offer, but you're going to get some money to play college athletics. Could the opportunity to maintain a competitive balance? Because some people would say, "Geez, I have to go to this school to play, or I have to go to a private school to play." Is that something that parents and the kids are more concerned about these days? And this is something that brings up a rule like that, or if you're an outstanding player, and we've seen it, could they make it at a smaller school? Are those some of the concerns that come into this?
Yeah, I think there's lots of different things that come into why we're bringing this proposal forward, and obviously I think there's more focus on that competitive balance, and obviously there's a tremendous amount of athletes in our state, no matter what the sport is, that have goals to play beyond high school. And I know that Mick talks about this with the membership, that there's nothing wrong with the club sport model and what they provide for kids. Within the high school system, we're trying to provide something that's competitive and fair and balanced. And there's times where we address things in our membership that may not provide that opportunity, and may provide opportunity where others feel that it is imbalanced. And so I think that kind of plays into it. We do have a committee that's reviewing that amendment specifically. So it's got members from every one of the districts. It's really going to focus in on that transfer rule, and what if voted on and passed, what sort of impact that would have, and what kind of blind spots it might have as well.
What do you think the coaches are looking for?
I think it depends on who you ask. I think there's some programs that are really trying to compete at the state level every year, and I think there's others out there that just want to have an opportunity for kids to participate. And there's nothing wrong with either one of those. I think that you're never going to have everybody on the same page, and so I think that it just kind of depends on what sport it is, what part of the community they're in. I think there's pressures that they're dealing with from families that are looking at their sons and daughters and want them to be successful and go on to that next level, and that's totally understand that.
Sons and daughters going on to the next level, and this brings us back to the conversation that we were really kind of tapping into in regards to the disputes. And I will ask you this: the disputes can arise between coaches, athletes, and of course parents. We do know about that, don't we? Speaking out into cyberspace there. How do the high school athletic programs establish, and obviously your father, albeit a very successful coach, I'm sure that he had some channels for communication. How do we allow parties involved? I mean, is it better for the students to go talk to the coach? Can a parent advocate for their child? What are the best practices in regards to the channels for creating that communication?
I think one of the things that schools do at the beginning of the year is they have a parent night, and they sit down, they bring all the parents in with the athletic director and maybe each one of the coaches, and talk about what the expectations are of their programs on a school-wide basis, and then also what they are from a sport-to-sport basis. They bring in the officials many times to talk about that, what the expectations are there. So I think that's a really good program. But going back to the setting the expectations with the athletes, setting it with the parents, setting it with the coaches. Here's how we're going to communicate with each other. I think that's important for people to understand and know what's going on. Now, it doesn't prevent people from going above the channels and around the way to get what they feel they need, but I think it's important for the coach and the player to have that communication first, or for them to be able to feel like they have an avenue to talk about what they feel is wrong. And I know the 24-hour rule has been thrown out there. We're not going to talk about anything for 24 hours. Let it settle down. Let the dust settle, and then we'll get after it. But I think that just setting those expectations and making sure that everybody understands what that communication key is key.
The athletic directors play a very, very key role in this, as you know. Yeah. And I think that, I obviously my athletic directors, and I had three very, very good ones who were able to work with me and ensure that we were able to come up with conversations that were civil, conversations that were very, very thoughtful, and made sure that the parent in particular, but also the student, was heard. And I think sometimes you need to have that experience mediated out. And let me tell you something. I think most people will be surprised. It's mostly not about playing time. You would think most of these conversations would be about playing time and something happening in the game, but at the schools that I were at, we had a lot of situations that arose that were things that happened off the field and sometimes in the classroom. And my question to you is this: in the role of athletic directors, what role does the athletic director play specifically in their building jurisdiction to develop these panels, these patterns and these pathways for communication between the parents, the coaches, and the participants?
I think that it's vitally important for those athletic directors to be able to set that standard, to work within their school, within all of their programs, within their community. I think the athletic directors that have had success have put out a game plan of how they're going to address that every year if they make it that long. Unfortunately, we see a lot of turnover with our athletic directors, and so many of them are put into a role where they don't have maybe coaching experience or they don't have athletic experience, and so trying to help them navigate what that looks like. It's one of our challenges. It's something that we focus on, and we try to create avenues for them to be able to have that conversation within their leagues, and we provide support within that, and it's to those veteran ADs who have a plan, have a program. It's been really helpful for those. But again, 25 to 30% turnover in ADs, people that we're trying to get built into the WI program.
What do you think drives this tremendous turnover in athletic directors?
I think there's a lot of factors, but I think just sometimes the expectations, from the community sometimes get in the way of what they're trying to build within the school. And I think that there's been more and more individuals that are getting involved into programs that maybe in the past there wasn't the ease of access to do that, and the pressures to set the bar so high for some programs that ultimately they just can't do. It's not college. They're not able to recruit their kids. They have to deal with what they have in their communities. And sometimes people want more than what they're able to provide. And so I think many times they say it's too much for them and they need to go a different direction, or other times they're asked to go step away and have somebody else come in.
He is Andy Barnes. He is the Assistant Athletic Director, one of 4 Assistant Athletic Directors at the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. I am Juan Cotto. I am a regular voice here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, speaking from anything from community organizing to politics. And is 2024 going to be a political year? And you thought 2023 was a political year, 2024. And so some of us actually got swept up in the political year, as you know, in 2023 going into 2024. And boy, we won't be making that mistake again from this position. But a number of people are. We have state legislative races. We have federal government races. We have races for Congress. We have a race for the United States Senate. And we have a race for the highest office in the land, the President of the United States. And we certainly have 2 candidates that I think that a lot of people are familiar with, and we're going to watch this summer, and I'm sure that there will be plenty of people talking about that on Rainier Avenue Radio, and we hope that you will listen in, as we are going to be listening to so many comments and so many ideas and so many thoughts to change not only our country, but right here in our local area. So we encourage you to stay tuned, and we also encourage you, as we always do, and I don't care about what persuasion you are, I don't care about what party you are, please, when the ballot comes, and I believe we had one for the primaries coming up here in Washington State, take your time to make a well-informed decision and vote. We feel that's really, really critical, and hope we take that with you from your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Student athletes may encounter conflicts with their peers, and oh boy, isn't that a fun one to deal with. How are coaches trained to address interpersonal conflicts amongst team members, and what resources are available to support the coaches? And yes, this is a very, very interesting question.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think that each one of the school districts, obviously, they provide their own training and set the levels for what their coaches have to go through. I think it's become increasingly more and more important for their coaches to be mindful and aware of what's going on with their student athletes. There's so many more pressures. There's so much more influence and I think we've unfortunately seen some things that have happened in our schools and communities that has been unfortunate, and we're trying to address that as best as we can. We're obviously looking from the state level at the WIAA, looking for ways to help our coaches with training, provide them with courses, not just specifically on how to be a better basketball coach, but how to look at ways to be a better person and address some of the issues that our student athletes are experiencing. I don't know if there's an easy answer to it, but just trying to provide opportunities for coaches to be aware of what's going on with their student athletes.
Do any of these things that we have been attempting, do you feel that some of them are making progress? And especially coming out of the pandemic, is it more important to be there face to face and together? And is that making an impact in regards to making sure that the kids have an avenue not only to share their concern, but to have it heard in a direct manner?
I think it's been tremendously important to get back to face, and our superintendents and our school leaders were asking us to advocate for that when we weren't able to have that in-person experience. And so we've seen our participation rates go up. We've seen that getting kids back connected with each other has been super important. So we're thankful that we're in a good spot with that right now, and hopefully we can continue that. And again, providing opportunities, providing education for our kids. We're doing everything we can to make sure everybody's in a positive mind state.
Can you provide examples of common conflicts that may arise within high school athletics? And how are they typically addressed to maintain a positive team environment?
I think that, we've seen some really nasty issues with derogatory comments made toward our athletes. And we've tried to address that over the last couple of years with our conduct policies and with our contest interruption policy. We've made a heightened awareness on that. So we are going to stop contests when we have issues on the court, whether it's fans addressing kids or coaches or officials, or if it's student athletes. And unfortunately, we've had some issues. We've had to address that. I think people being aware of it has been a positive thing. I think we're moving forward with that and setting the expectations of what should and shouldn't happen on the field, on the court. And so I think that's been a good positive step. We've had our officials put cameras on in certain sports through the winter, and we're going to be doing that in the spring. And so that's kind of a pilot program that we're doing to address some of the behavior that's happening out there. So we're doing what we can to address sportsmanship. I think it's a big key, and I think it's a focus with our membership.
As much as I love sports, Andy, and work with me on this one, because I love it. I played when I was a child. I played when I was a youth. I played through high school. I went on to college and played. You had a couple of men's leagues and that sort of thing, and certainly have worked with my son because it's a passion for him as well. I just think there's so much positive about athletics. Andy, I never went to a high school game with the idea that, especially as a parent, that I was going to interject opinions and try to tear down referees and try to now at professional games. I mean, I've always rooted for the Seahawks, Sonics, Mariners. That's right, the Seattle Supersonics for those that remember. And actually, just because of the intensity of basketball and the proximity to where the fans sit, sometimes you can get seats where everyone on the court can hear you. Has some of the pro game and some of our passion around the college game, has that maybe seeped a little bit too much into the high school game where it's kids and it's people who are refereeing, who are doing good things in the community? Are we as a society, are we getting a little too caught up in the winning and losing in the water cooler talk around high school sports?
I think so. I think in some ways the expectations of what our athletes should be doing, what our coaches should be doing, what the officials should be doing is maybe a little too high from what we see at the professional level and the college level. I think one area that I deal with at the association is with ejections and the review of video and whether or not they got the shot off or anything like that. And the technology is so much better at the higher levels, and we just unfortunately we don't have the ability to do that. We're doing the best that we can to address that, but sometimes something's going to be missed, a call is going to be missed or anything like that. And yeah, it's difficult, and we've all been through that scenario. We've seen Super Bowls lost because of bad calls, and things like that. But I know that our officials and our coaches are trying to do the right thing. They're not out there to obviously make mistakes. And I think that obviously everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to see things go correctly, but maybe there is just a little bit too much focus or too connected to the game. And sometimes
we had a Tony Benton sighting. Tony B sighting was walking right down the red carpet here at the historic Columbia City Museum/Theater. It was the Call to Conscience Museum back in February for the Black History Month program that Tony B put together. And there he is. We do have a Tony B sighting here in Rainier Avenue Radio, 4916 Rainier Avenue South on your community radio station, RainierAvenueRadio.world. We have Andy Barnes with us today. He is an associate athletic director, or he's an assistant athletic director, one of 4 at the WIAA, and he oversees some big time issues. Tell us about the lesser sports. I would have you. There's no such thing as really as a lesser sport, but the sports that you oversee outside of football and basketball. Tell us about the passion that goes into those. Tell us about those tournaments, and tell us just about how the community supports those sports as well.
Yeah, the one that most recently wrapped up for me is swimming and diving, and I think it's one of the best state championships that we have. Everybody supports each other. We're very fortunate to be at the King County Aquatic Center, which is probably one of the best high school facilities, or facility where we can do high school championships. So
a world-class facility that was built for the Goodwill Games.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think we're very fortunate to be able to showcase that for our athletes. I think that the community of swimming and diving, they support every one of them. There's been some really great swims over the years. I've seen just some great support for, not just focusing on one school, but any athlete that puts out. So swimming and diving is one of the highlights of my year for sure. So, again, I oversee golf and tennis. My background is a golfer, so I love going to the state golf championships. Learned a lot about tennis, and we get to play at UW. We get to be over in Eastern Washington, so we have some great tennis facilities too. But really, every championship that we have, we've got dance and drill here in Yakima in 2 weeks that Cindy's going to be running. It's an awesome event, and so if you get the opportunity to get it and check that out, that'd be great.
I tell you, the dream that I had, I wish I could go back and I wish I could participate in the golf, the high school sports again. And I tell you, after I went out and played around in December for Jefferson Park, my home course, and was on a Sunday morning to see us playing the Tennessee Titans. I remember that. I think that it may have been Christmas Eve for those that celebrate Christmas. Although I brought way too many strokes, that made me realize so many things you have to work on in life, and reconstructing your golf game. And as David Faraday always says, you have to accept the misery that comes along with that. But I've got a lot of work to get back into, and I've got to spend it now that the weather's a little bit warmer. Maybe I can get myself back down to a 18 handicap. Bullying and harassment can be serious issues. What and how are the instances of bullying or harassment addressed within sports programs, and what preventative measures can we use and continue to use? And it seems like every year we get a big story in the major media about a harassment issue. What can we do to settle that down? Or is this just a case of kids growing up and not knowing the impact of their own words and feelings with others around them?
And I think it's with the growing impact that social media has. I think that unfortunately there's a lot of bullying and harassment that goes on in the social media world that impacts our sports programs. Along with our contest interruption policy, we do have a harassment form that can be filled out if that's discrimination or harassment or bullying, anything that's happening in our contest. And we've had people fill that out. We've had to address some issues in our member schools, and most of the time they're aware of what's going on, but there have been instances where we have brought things to the membership that they weren't aware of what was going on. And unfortunately, those are things that we're having to deal with. And hopefully we can have those conversations about what it looks like, how to address it as a coach, how to address it as a program and an athletic director, provide those resources so that, when those kids are experiencing that type of situation, they know how to address it.
And It's always great to have you on the show, and your legacy, the legacy of the fact that your father was a coach, the fact that you followed that path, the fact that you've been at the WIAA basically since you got out of college. When you think about your impact on sports and the things that you've done, when you look back on it, what are you hoping that that you have done for the WIAA, and what are you proud of?
I hope that, when I first started, I had the opportunity to work with the Seahawks and the WIAA at the same time. Right. So I got to experience those side by side, and just the people that are in the WIAA really made me want to be there.
Was that Kevin Griffin there at the time?
Kevin
Kevin.
Yeah.
What a good dude.
Shout out to Kevin. Yeah. So it was the people that I get to work with. I love it. It keeps me motivated. And I think when I look back at the things that we're able to do as a team to provide those opportunities, I know I was fortunate enough to participate at the state level, and some kids aren't, but just the opportunity to be able to participate and be innovative and create new opportunities that we're trying to do, whether it's, adding new girls sports or adding sports across the board. So I think when I look back is providing that opportunity and giving people, something to remember for a lifetime. I think that's something we always try to do at the WIAA. Kevin,
you are awesome. We love you, man. But it's going to be really interesting dealing with those Ohio State Buckeyes in the Big Ten now. And I know you're feeling very confident, and I can't wait to see Ohio State come to Seattle one of these days, and we'll be there for that. And I'll be thinking about my man Kevin. Just before our last question, just give us some thoughts on the incredible development of women's sports, female sports, girls sports. But there's not even girls anymore. These are women who play these events now, and they're remarkably talented. And just to be able to call a girls basketball game now, Andy, and trying to keep up with it. The game is so fast. Tell me about the commitment to girls sports in our Washington State Athletic Association.
Yeah, I think
Activities Association.
Yeah. I think obviously we've seen a tremendous amount of opportunity in girls sports and the growth and the just how that has developed with our girls flag program.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an official sport at this time, but it's up for the membership to vote on. But we've had upwards of 50 to 60 schools that have added that program, and just increasing the opportunities for girls in sport. And there's a lot of other opportunities out there that our girls get to participate in. So hopefully we can keep creating those opportunities and see it grow. The Seahawks have put in a lot of resources along with the NFL, and hopefully that can continue to grow here in the state, and I know that across the country, and we'll see it here in the 2028 Olympics. They're already talking about what that's going to look like, and I'm sure that we're going to have a girl from Washington participating in that, representing the United States. So that's going to be great.
A couple of other questions that came from our viewers. Do you find any school grossly using the hardship rule?
I think that, we're always hopeful that all of the member schools are abiding by the rules. I think that, we're a member-driven organization, so everything starts at the ground up. But we're hopeful that we're putting in our policies and procedures in place to create that consistency across the state. And if it's brought to us that there is a violation that is happening, we will address it and we'll take it to that member school.
And another question, and then this one, obviously one I'm familiar with when I was at Highline High School in Burien, where we had a Catholic school I wanted to attend, actually, Kennedy High School right on the street.
Mm-hmm.
How do you police attendance policies between public and private schools?
Well, at the office itself, we don't have the ability to go out and investigate and do that. We're a pretty small, lean and mean staff.
Yeah.
But again, if we hear of things that are happening that are outside the membership rules, we will let the athletic director know, and hopefully that league is addressing it. And if another member school believes that that's happening, they need to bring that to that school's attention. And then if they don't feel like they're getting the answers they need, then they can definitely come to us.
This is a man who has a position that never has a dull moment in it. I know for the 12 months, actually for the 13 months out of the year that he is working, and he is planning all of these. And I know all of these questions come to him in a variety of different ways. And he is a person who I have found has a tremendous amount of integrity, someone who has worked with schools and students to come up with the best possible solutions. And I know, as Mick Hoffman has said, he has a great staff. And I know that he does have a great staff, number one, but he is extremely fortunate to have Andy Barnes as an assistant athletic director. It's always a pleasure for him to come spend time with us on your community radio station. With us. We appreciate it. Mick, Hoffman, and I will be back here next week, I think. Turn on at 3 o'clock, and you will see us, or you will see us in replication. Have a great week. Enjoy this little bit of sunshine we're getting, and get out and watch some spring sports because they're starting to happen now. Juan, Cotto, and Andy Barnes on your community radio station, WIAA Primetime on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. See you next week.